In the heart of Haven, Chef Ben Carter faces his toughest challenge yet when his trusted friend and head chef Jake betrays him, leaving his cherished Chicago restaurant in ruins. Just as Ben considers giving up, a chance encounter with Mia and her young son, Sam, reignites his hope. Together they set out to rebuild Heart of Haven into a place of warmth and community. But with old rivals looming and unexpected challenges ahead, their journey is anything but easy. Will Ben and Mia's partnership be enough to bring Heart of Haven back to life? Find out in this heartwarming story of resilience, love, and new beginnings. If you're ready for an unforgettable journey, subscribe for more and share in the comments what home means to you. Ben Carter, a man in his early 50s, stood behind the gleaming bar of Heart of Haven, watching as the evening sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over the restaurant's intimate dining area. For as long as he could remember, this place had been his dream. A sanctuary for food lovers, a gathering spot for friends and families, a small yet special corner of Chicago. To Ben, Heart of Haven was more than a restaurant. It was a labor of love. He'd built it from scratch more than 15 years ago, pouring his heart into every detail. Every element of the place, from the worn but polished mahogany tables to the flickering candlelight, was chosen with the utmost care. Ben had envisioned a space where people could unwind, savor each bite, and connect with those around them. A haven, as its name promised. The menu had been carefully crafted over the years, evolving slowly but never losing its essence. Ben's cuisine was inspired by his late mother, who had raised him on hearty, homemade meals. To him, cooking was not about following recipes, but about evoking memories, capturing the essence of togetherness. Many of his dishes were twists on the meals his mother had made when he was a child, and every bite reminded him of her warmth and guidance. Despite his years of experience and dedication, Ben wasn't one to boast. He was known by the locals as quiet, a little reserved, but deeply invested in his restaurant's success. His regulars felt like family, and he made an effort to remember each one, often greeting them by name or surprising them with their favorite dish on the house. Ben's head chef, Jake Wallace, was a tall, imposing man with a sharp mind and undeniable culinary talent. In his early 40s, Jake had joined Heart of Haven when it was still in its infancy. Over the years, he had become more than just an employee to Ben. He was a trusted friend, a creative partner in the kitchen, and, at times, almost like a younger brother. Jake's sense of flavor was unparalleled, and he brought an edge to Ben's classic recipes, creating a menu that had become the talk of the neighborhood. Together, Ben and Jake were a perfect team, balancing each other's strengths and weaknesses. Ben had always trusted Jake implicitly, believing they shared the same dedication to Heart of Haven's success. In many ways, Jake represented the future of the restaurant, bringing a contemporary flair to the dishes that kept Heart of Haven relevant amid the city's ever-evolving culinary landscape. The first time Ben heard about Quick Eats, a new fast food joint opening a few blocks down, he barely gave it a thought. He was too focused on preparing for that night's service, which included an intimate dinner for a couple celebrating their anniversary, a pair of regulars who had first come to Heart of Haven on their first date years ago. For Ben, creating memorable experiences like these was what mattered most, and he couldn't imagine a fast food chain cutting into his loyal clientele. But in the weeks that followed, Ben began noticing subtle changes. The restaurant was quieter during peak hours. Friday and Saturday nights, which had once been bustling, now had fewer reservations. Several of his regulars had stopped coming altogether. He overheard one of his servers mention that the young crowd seemed to be flocking to Quick Eats, drawn by its cheap, fast meals. Still, Ben assured himself it was a passing trend. Heart of Haven had weathered various competition over the years, and each time his customers returned. After all, his restaurant was known for its quality and warmth, things he was certain couldn't be matched by a chain. But as the weeks turned into months, the trend became a serious concern. Every night, Ben sat in his office, going over the numbers, hoping to find an explanation that didn't include his restaurant losing favor. His profits were slipping, and he noticed a decline in his stock of high-quality ingredients. Some of his specialty items, which had once been staples on the menu, became too costly to maintain with the dwindling revenue. Ben tried reaching out to some of his regulars to understand their concerns, but the feedback he received was perplexing. Customers commented on the decline in food quality, slower service, and even a general loss of the welcoming ambiance. It was as if Heart of Haven had lost its charm overnight, and no matter how hard Ben tried to identify the issue, he couldn't put his finger on what had gone wrong. Determined to get to the root of the problem, Ben decided to spend more time observing the kitchen and service areas. Over the course of a week, he noted several small but troubling changes. Ingredients were being substituted for lower-quality alternatives. Recipes were altered without his consent, and the kitchen staff seemed more disorganized than usual. For a place that had once run like a well-oiled machine, the decline in standards was baffling. Ben couldn't help but notice that Jake seemed less engaged than usual. Once energetic and enthusiastic, Jake now appeared distracted, sometimes even frustrated, as if his heart was no longer in the work. Ben dismissed it as burnout, a natural reaction to the restaurant's challenges. But one night, after closing, Ben decided to stay late to observe the final cleanup. He waited in his office, quietly listening, when he heard voices echoing from the kitchen. Jake was speaking in hushed tones to a supplier Ben recognized but hadn't worked with in years. "Yeah, make sure the good stuff goes to my place," Jake was saying. "I want it all there when I launch. This place, it won't last much longer." Ben's heart pounded as the realization hit him. Jake was siphoning ingredients, likely diverting the high-quality items to a new venture of his own. His closest friend and partner were not just leaving but actively sabotaging Heart of Haven to benefit himself. Ben sat back in his chair, stunned. The betrayal was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He had placed all his trust in Jake, believing they shared a vision, a purpose. The thought of his restaurant's struggles being intentionally caused by the person he trusted most was a bitter pill to swallow. The next night, Ben couldn't focus on anything else. His mind raced, replaying every conversation, every shared meal, every instance where Jake had seemingly been by his side, only to reveal this betrayal. By the end of the evening, he decided he couldn't let this slide. He had to confront Jake. Once the last customers had left and the other staff had gone home, Ben waited by the kitchen door, his expression grim. "Jake, we need to talk." Jake looked up, his face hardening as he met Ben's gaze. "What is it?" Ben took a steadying breath, determined to keep his emotions in check. "I know you've been cutting corners, using lower-quality ingredients, and even changing the recipes without telling me. And I know you've been taking the best of our supplies for yourself." Jake's face remained unreadable for a moment. Then he shrugged, barely hiding his disdain. "You've made this place your entire life, Ben. But that's not my problem. I want more than just this little restaurant. I'm building something bigger, and I can't wait around forever." Ben felt a mix of anger and sadness. "I trusted you, Jake. I thought we shared the same goals, the same commitment to what we built here." Jake's expression turned cold. "You're stuck in the past, Ben. People want quick, easy, and cheap, not hours spent on gourmet dishes. Maybe it's time you faced reality." Ben could hardly believe what he was hearing. The man he had trusted with his life's work, the chef he'd considered family, was standing in front of him, dismantling everything they had created without remorse. "Get out," Ben said, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling with emotion. "You're done here." Jake didn't argue or apologize. He simply turned and walked out, leaving Ben alone in the empty restaurant. In the days that followed, Ben struggled to keep the restaurant afloat. Without Jake, the once efficient kitchen staff was in disarray, and the financial strain continued to mount. Night after night, Ben stayed late, working tirelessly to make up for the damage Jake had done. But despite his efforts, the restaurant's reputation continued to suffer, and customers kept their distance. The weight of Jake's betrayal felt unbearable, and for the first time, Ben considered selling the restaurant. The thought was devastating, but he didn't see any other way out. His life's work, his dream, was slipping away, and he was powerless to stop it. Sitting alone in the empty dining room one late night, Ben looked around at the place he had loved so deeply. The tables, the lights, the small mementos he had collected over the years, it all seemed hollow now, a reminder of what he'd lost. With a heavy heart, he accepted that Heart of Haven might soon be nothing more than a memory. In the weeks following Jake's departure, Heart of Haven felt emptier than ever. Ben found himself grappling with the fallout of Jake's betrayal, not just emotionally, but financially. The restaurant's reputation had been damaged, and even though he was no longer losing supplies, the drop in quality during those critical months had left a lasting impact. Loyal customers were scarce, and it seemed as though the lively hum that had once defined the place had faded into a haunting silence. Ben pored over financial statements each night, his hands trembling slightly as he scanned the figures. Profits were alarmingly low, and his debt was accumulating faster than he could manage. He had poured his savings and his heart into Heart of Haven, and the thought of losing it felt unbearable. Every night he would sit alone in his office, weighed down by the mounting bills, and the fear that he was facing an inevitable end. At times, he considered the possibility of selling. After all, letting go could relieve the financial burden, and maybe he could start over somewhere else. But each time the thought crossed his mind, Ben's heart clenched. He couldn't bear to part with the place that held so many memories, both joyous and painful. The restaurant was a part of him, and giving it up felt like abandoning a piece of his soul. One frigid January evening, after another slow night, Ben locked up the restaurant and stepped out into the cold. He tightened his coat around him, preparing for the short walk home, but as he turned toward the alley behind Heart of Haven, he noticed something unusual. A small movement caught his eye, a flash of color tucked against the wall near the dumpster. Curious, Ben approached, his footsteps echoing against the cobblestone. As he got closer, he saw a woman huddled with a young boy beside her, the two of them wrapped in worn blankets. The woman's face was pale, etched with exhaustion, and her arms were wrapped protectively around the boy, who clung to her with wide, anxious eyes. The woman looked up, her expression a mix of embarrassment and fear. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice trembling. "We didn't mean to intrude. We just needed a place out of the wind." Ben's heart tightened as he looked at the young boy's face, pale and tired, but brimming with innocence. He couldn't turn them away, not on a night like this, when the temperatures were dropping below freezing. He knelt down, his voice gentle but firm. "You're not intruding. It's too cold to be out here." He gestured toward the back door of Heart of Haven. "Come inside. I'll make you some hot tea and we can talk there. You'll be warmer." The woman hesitated, glancing at her son, who looked up at her with hopeful eyes. She nodded, and together they followed Ben into the dimly lit restaurant. He guided them to a table near the kitchen, where the warmth was strongest, and set about preparing a simple meal from the remaining ingredients in the fridge. As he worked, he learned their names, Mia and her 6-year-old son, Sam. Over cups of tea, she shared a bit of their story. Mia had once lived a stable life, working as an assistant in a local law firm. But after her partner left without warning, she found herself unable to keep up with the rent and was eventually evicted. With limited family support and few resources, she and Sam had been struggling to find shelter, moving from place to place, relying on the kindness of strangers. Mia's story stirred something deep within Ben. He could see the resilience in her eyes, a strength that reminded him of his own mother, who had raised him on her own after his father's untimely passing. He knew what it felt like to struggle, to feel like the world was slipping away from beneath you. The thought of turning her and Sam back into the cold was unthinkable. After a moment's hesitation, Ben looked at her earnestly. "I know it's not much, but there's a small room above the restaurant. It's clean and safe, and you're welcome to stay there, at least until you find something more permanent." Mia's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope breaking through her exhaustion. "Are you sure? We don't want to impose." Ben nodded, a gentle smile softening his usually serious face. "I could use a little help here, to be honest. The restaurant needs a lot of cleaning and organizing these days, and I'm short on hands. If you're willing to lend a hand, I'd be happy to trade food and shelter for some help." Mia took a long, steadying breath before nodding. "Thank you. Truly, thank you." Over the next several weeks, Mia and Sam became a part of Ben's daily routine. Mia was meticulous, spending her days scrubbing and polishing every corner of the restaurant. She organized the back storage rooms, washed the windows, and even took it upon herself to add little touches. A small flower arrangement on each table, fresh linens, and a gentle fragrance in the dining room. Bit by bit, Heart of Haven began to regain its former charm. A quiet elegance returning to the space that had felt so hollow and abandoned. Sam, with his bright eyes and boundless energy, quickly won over the few remaining regular customers. He often left small, hand-drawn thank you notes on tables, and patrons began to look forward to his cheerful greetings. Even Ben, who had grown accustomed to his quiet, solitary life, found himself laughing more, warmed by Sam's innocence and joyful spirit. One afternoon, as they were closing up, Ben and Mia shared a meal in the back of the restaurant. It had been a long day of cleaning, and the air was thick with the scent of freshly baked bread. A small comfort in the cold winter. "You have a real talent for this, you know," Ben said, gesturing to the meal Mia had prepared. A simple yet delicious pasta with a rich, creamy sauce that melted in his mouth. Mia smiled shyly. "My grandmother taught me to cook when I was young. She used to say food was like music. It brought people together, made them feel connected." Ben nodded, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. "That's exactly what I wanted Heart of Haven to be. A place where people could come together, feel at home." Mia's gaze softened as she looked around the room. "I think it still can be, Ben. Sometimes, places just need a little love to feel alive again." As the weeks passed, Ben began to feel a glimmer of hope for the restaurant. With Mia's help, the place felt revitalized, as if it had found a new heartbeat. Customers began trickling back in, lured by the fresh ambiance and the subtle changes Mia had brought. Ben noticed that the regulars were returning, some of them even bringing friends to experience the renewed energy at Heart of Haven. One evening, Ben found himself sitting with Mia at the bar, the two of them quietly sipping tea as they reviewed the day's earnings. For the first time in months, there was a profit, however modest. The sight of those numbers filled Ben with a renewed determination, and an idea took root. "Mia," he said, turning to her, "I know you've brought so much to this place already, but I have a proposal. What if you took a larger role here? Not just cleaning and organizing, but helping me with the menu, creating new dishes." Mia looked at him, surprised. "Me? I've never worked as a professional chef, Ben. I just cook for my son, for family." "But that's what makes it special," Ben said earnestly. "You have a way with food that reminds me of why I fell in love with cooking in the first place. I think you could bring something new to Heart of Haven, something it desperately needs." Mia hesitated, the weight of his words sinking in. She had always loved cooking, but the idea of working in a restaurant, of helping to rebuild something so close to Ben's heart, filled her with a mix of excitement and fear. She met Ben's gaze, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "All right," she said, a tentative smile breaking through. "I'll give it a try." Over the following weeks, Mia introduced small changes to the menu. She added a new pasta dish, rich in flavor and warmth, inspired by her grandmother's recipe. She experimented with seasonal ingredients, creating simple but delicious dishes that reflected the spirit of Heart of Haven. Customers noticed the changes, praising the fresh flavors and the personal touch each dish carried. For Ben, seeing Mia's creativity flourish brought a sense of purpose back into his life. Each new dish was a small victory, a testament to the hard work they had both poured into the restaurant's revival. Little by little, the restaurant's reputation began to rebuild, and the once empty tables started to fill again. After months of hard work, Heart of Haven was finally back on its feet. The steady flow of customers brought life back into the restaurant, and the small team worked tirelessly to meet the growing demand. One evening, as they were wrapping up, Ben received a call from an old friend and local businessman, Harold Davis. Harold had heard about the restaurant's resurgence and was intrigued by the changes. He had always admired Ben's dedication and was curious to see how Heart of Haven had transformed. After a brief conversation, Harold arranged to meet Ben and Mia the following week to discuss a potential investment. The day of the meeting arrived, and Mia prepared a selection of her dishes to showcase the new menu. As Harold sampled each dish, Ben watched nervously, hoping his friend would see the heart and soul that Mia had infused into the food. Harold's reaction was positive, his expressions of delight growing with each bite. "This is remarkable," Harold said, setting down his fork. "I see what you're doing here, Ben. And Mia, your food has a soul. I want to be a part of this revival. But I have one condition. Mia needs to have an official role here as head chef. Ben glanced at Mia, who looked both stunned and overjoyed. The opportunity was a turning point, a chance for her to build something meaningful and reclaim her life in a way she hadn't thought possible. She met Ben's gaze, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me." With Harold's support, they took the first steps toward fully restoring Heart of Haven, preparing for a new chapter of growth and community. The grand reopening of Heart of Haven was a culmination of months of hard work, dedication, and newfound hope. Ben, Mia, and their small team had prepared meticulously, and on the night of the event, the restaurant's interior gleamed with a renewed vibrance. Warm lights cast a golden glow over the dining room, and the tables were set with fresh flowers that Mia had hand-picked from the local market. As the first guests arrived, Ben felt his pulse quicken. Familiar faces greeted him with smiles and encouraging words, many of them regulars who had missed the comfort and warmth of Heart of Haven during its decline. Seeing old friends return, Ben felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was why he had fought so hard, to bring people together, to give them a space where they felt at home. Mia moved through the dining room with quiet confidence, checking in with each guest and making sure their experience was nothing short of extraordinary. Her new menu, which featured dishes inspired by her family recipes, was met with enthusiasm. Patrons marveled at the fresh flavors, the creativity, and the personal touch that seemed to be woven into each bite. As the night wore on, Ben watched with a mixture of pride and relief. The tables were full, the laughter and conversation filled the air, and for the first time in months, he felt a genuine sense of joy. Word of the reopening had spread throughout the neighborhood, and soon the restaurant was bustling with patrons eager to experience the revitalized Heart of Haven. At the end of the night, Ben and Mia stood by the front door, saying goodbye to each guest as they left, many of whom expressed their excitement about returning soon. After the last patron had left, Ben turned to Mia, a broad smile on his face. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "This place feels alive again. I couldn't have done it without you, Mia." Mia smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "Thank you, Ben, for giving me and Sam a place to belong. I never thought I'd find a home like this again." In the weeks that followed, the restaurant flourished, becoming more than just a successful business. It became a cherished community hub, a place where people gathered not just to eat, but to connect. Ben and Mia spent countless hours working together, finding a rhythm that was both challenging and fulfilling. Their partnership deepened as they navigated the daily demands of the restaurant, and over time, they found themselves drawn closer together, their connection evolving into something more than friendship. Each evening, after the last guests had gone, Ben and Mia would sit together, sharing a simple meal and talking about the day's events. Mia would often tell him stories about her childhood, her dreams of one day becoming a chef, and her love for the old recipes her grandmother had passed down. And Ben, in turn, shared his memories of his mother, the woman who had inspired his passion for food and family. One particularly quiet night, as they sat in the dimly lit dining room, Ben found himself looking at Mia in a way he hadn't looked at anyone in years. She had become more than just his partner in the restaurant. She was his confidant, his friend, and perhaps, he dared to hope, something more. "Mia," he began, his voice soft but steady, "I know life hasn't been easy for either of us, but I want you to know, you've brought something special to this place, and to me." Mia looked at him, a gentle smile crossing her face. "I feel the same way, Ben. This place, it's more than a restaurant to me. It's a home." Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and Ben found himself looking forward to each moment they spent together. He hadn't expected to find love amid the ruins of his restaurant, but with Mia, everything felt right, as if life had given him a second chance at happiness. The growing success of Heart of Haven began to attract attention from the broader community. Patrons from all over the city came to experience the restaurant's unique charm, drawn by the stories they had heard of its revival and the personal touches Mia had brought to the menu. One afternoon, Ben received an unexpected call from Harold Davis, the investor who had helped fund the reopening. Harold had been following the restaurant's progress and was thoroughly impressed by what Ben and Mia had accomplished. He invited them to dinner, hinting at a new opportunity. During the dinner, Harold proposed a bold idea: expanding Heart of Haven to other locations across Chicago. He envisioned a series of restaurants that carried the same warmth, quality, and sense of community that had made the original so beloved. "It would be a flagship, Ben," Harold explained, his enthusiasm palpable. "A place people talk about, one that defines what it means to be part of a community." Ben felt a thrill of excitement but also a pang of uncertainty. Expanding Heart of Haven was a dream he had never dared to entertain, especially after the hardships he'd faced. But as he glanced at Mia, he saw the same spark of excitement in her eyes. She nodded encouragingly, and Ben realized that with her by his side, the dream didn't feel as daunting. "Let's do it," he said, his voice filled with determination. "But only if we can keep the heart of what this place is about. Every new Heart of Haven has to feel like home." Mia placed her hand over his, her expression serious. "Together, we'll make sure each place carries the same love and care we've built here." They left the dinner filled with excitement for what lay ahead, ready to take on the challenge of expanding their shared vision into a new chapter. As the plans for the new location began to take shape, word of Heart of Haven's expansion spread quickly, and with it, a new challenge emerged. Late one evening, just as Ben was closing up the restaurant, he heard the unmistakable voice of Jake echoing through the front doors. Ben's heart skipped a beat as he turned to face his former partner, who stood smirking, his posture filled with a smug arrogance that immediately set Ben on edge. "So," Jake drawled, glancing around the newly decorated dining room, "you managed to scrape this place back together, huh?" Ben forced himself to stay calm, though the sight of Jake brought back a flood of bitter memories. "What do you want, Jake?" Jake crossed his arms, his smirk never wavering. "I've opened a place just down the block, a real upscale spot. You could say I'm your competition now." "But Ben, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't impressed by this little comeback of yours." Ben felt a surge of anger, but he swallowed it, refusing to give Jake the satisfaction. "We don't need your approval, Jake. We're doing fine without you." Jake scoffed, his gaze shifting to Mia, who stood nearby, watching the exchange with quiet strength. "So you found a new chef," he sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "Think she's going to save you, Ben?" Mia stepped forward, her expression calm but resolute. "I'm here because I believe in Heart of Haven and everything it stands for. You walked away from this place, Jake, but we've built something that matters." For a moment, Jake's mask of smugness slipped, revealing a flicker of anger. But he quickly recovered, shrugging dismissively. "We'll see how long it lasts," he said, his voice low. "Once my place opens, this little revival of yours will be a memory." With one last scornful glance, Jake turned and strode out of the restaurant, leaving a tense silence in his wake. Ben let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, feeling a mixture of relief and frustration. Mia placed a comforting hand on his arm. "Don't let him get to you, Ben. We've come this far, and nothing he says will change that." Ben looked at her, his resolve strengthening. "You're right. Heart of Haven isn't just a business. It's our home, and no one, not even Jake, can take that away from us." With Jake's threat lingering in the air, Ben and Mia redoubled their efforts, pouring every ounce of energy into preparing for the new location's launch. They wanted each Heart of Haven to embody the spirit of the original, a place of community, quality, and warmth that would welcome everyone who walked through its doors. The grand opening of the second location was a massive success, with patrons filling every table and expressing admiration for the food, ambiance, and sense of belonging that defined Heart of Haven. Ben and Mia moved seamlessly through the crowd, greeting guests, sharing stories, and taking in the joy of their shared accomplishment. That evening, as they locked up the new location and returned to the original Heart of Haven, Ben and Mia sat together in the quiet dining room, taking in the moment. "We've come a long way," Ben said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I couldn't have done it without you." Mia smiled, reaching for his hand. "This is our journey, Benny. Together we've built something that will last." In the glow of the dim lights, they shared a quiet, unspoken promise, a commitment to face whatever the future held, as partners, as friends, and as something even deeper. With the success of Heart of Haven's second location, Ben and Mia's days became a whirlwind of activity. They spent long hours managing the new restaurant, ensuring that every detail reflected the heart of what they had built together. The new location had brought in a mix of patrons, and Ben couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as he watched guests experience the familiar warmth and welcome that Heart of Haven was known for. Despite the excitement, the process wasn't without its challenges. Managing two locations tested Ben and Mia's patience and energy. Yet every evening, they found themselves back in the original Heart of Haven, sharing a meal and reflecting on their progress. Each night, as they closed up, they would sit at their usual table discussing the highs and lows of the day. The work was demanding, but it was rewarding in ways they hadn't anticipated. They were no longer just business partners, they were each other's confidants, and their connection grew stronger with each passing day. One cold December evening, Ben finished the last of the day's paperwork and went to find Mia in the dining room, where she was setting up a small holiday display with Sam, who had become an integral part of the Heart of Haven family. Sam was carefully placing tiny wooden ornaments on a small tree they had set up in the corner of the dining area, his face lit with concentration. Ben walked over, smiling at the cozy scene. "That looks great, Sam. You're doing a wonderful job." Sam beamed, looking up at Ben. "Mom and I made these decorations together. I wanted to make the restaurant feel like Christmas." Mia glanced up, her face softened by the glow of the twinkling lights. "He's been working hard on these for weeks, wanted everything to be just right for the holidays." Ben felt a deep warmth settle over him. For the first time in years, the holiday season felt like more than just a busy time at the restaurant. It felt like family, like home. To celebrate the success of the new location, Ben and Mia decided to host a holiday gathering at the original Heart of Haven, inviting friends, patrons, and supporters from the community. The restaurant was beautifully decorated with evergreen wreaths, candles, and strands of twinkling lights. The tables were set with handcrafted holiday centerpieces, and a delicious spread was prepared by Mia and her kitchen team, featuring a combination of traditional dishes and new holiday-inspired creations. The night was a joyous celebration of everything they had built, filled with laughter, conversation, and the clinking of glasses. Ben watched as patrons, friends, and family gathered, sharing stories and memories of Heart of Haven's journey. Many guests expressed how grateful they were to see the restaurant thrive again, and Ben's heart swelled with gratitude. Toward the end of the night, Mia surprised everyone with a special dish, a holiday twist on one of her grandmother's recipes. She explained its significance to the guests, sharing the story of how her grandmother had taught her to cook, using food as a way to bring people together. As the guests savored the meal, Ben took a moment to reflect. This was the Heart of Haven he had always envisioned, a place where people could gather, celebrate, and feel at home. In that moment, he knew that all the struggles, heartbreak, and challenges had been worth it. He looked across the room at Mia, who was laughing with some of the regulars, and felt a surge of admiration and affection. She had transformed his life, and the life of the restaurant, in ways he hadn't thought possible. As the night wound down and the last of the guests began to leave, Ben found Mia alone in the quiet dining room, tidying up a few of the decorations. The glow of the holiday lights cast a warm hue over her face, and Ben felt his heart race as he approached her. "Mia," he began, his voice soft and steady. "There's something I need to say." She turned to face him, her expression curious. "What is it?" Ben took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "These last few years with you and Sam, they've been more than I ever imagined. You've brought life back into this place, into my life. I've spent so long building Heart of Haven, but I realized tonight that it's not the restaurant that's my home. It's you and Sam." Mia's eyes filled with tears as she took in his words, her hands trembling slightly. Ben smiled, his voice filled with emotion. "Mia, I don't just want to run this restaurant with you. I want to build a life with you. Will you marry me?" For a moment Mia was speechless, her eyes wide with surprise. She nodded, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, Ben," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." He reached for her hand, pulling her close as they shared a quiet embrace, feeling the weight of the moment settle over them. For both of them, this was more than a proposal. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a shared future. After their engagement, Ben and Mia's bond grew deeper as they continued working side by side, pouring their love and dedication into Heart of Haven. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, held in the original restaurant, surrounded by close friends, family, and the loyal patrons who had supported them throughout their journey. The restaurant was transformed for the occasion, adorned with flowers, candles, and twinkling lights. Mia wore a simple yet elegant dress, and Ben couldn't take his eyes off her. As they exchanged vows, promising to support and cherish one another, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Sam played a special role in the ceremony, proudly carrying the rings and beaming as he watched his mother and Ben exchange their vows. To him, this moment was a celebration not only of love, but of the family they had found together. After the wedding, Ben and Mia returned to their routine with a renewed sense of purpose. Heart of Haven continued to thrive, and with each passing day, it became clear that the restaurant was more than a business. It was a symbol of their resilience, their love, and their shared commitment to building something meaningful. The years that followed were filled with growth and joy, both in their personal lives and in the success of Heart of Haven. The restaurant became a beloved institution, with loyal patrons returning time and again, drawn by the warmth, quality, and sense of belonging that Ben and Mia had nurtured. They opened a few more locations, each one carefully designed to carry the same heart and soul as the original, a testament to their shared vision. Ben and Mia found a comfortable balance, splitting their time between managing the restaurants and cherishing quiet moments with Sam, who had blossomed in the warmth of their family. The restaurant community embraced him, and he often helped set up tables or chat with guests, becoming a beloved fixture at Heart of Haven. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet of the original restaurant, Ben took Mia's hand, a smile playing on his lips. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Mia nodded, her gaze soft. "I still can't believe how much has changed. I never imagined we'd build this kind of life." Ben squeezed her hand, a deep gratitude filling his heart. "It's because of you, Mia. You gave me and this place a second chance, and I'm so grateful we get to share this journey." They looked around at the familiar walls, the tables, the soft glow of the lights that had witnessed so much of their story. Heart of Haven had transformed over the years, but at its core it remained the place they had built together, a sanctuary for all who walked through its doors. As the years passed, Ben and Mia continued to grow their dream, nurturing Heart of Haven and expanding their legacy. Each location became a cherished part of its community, a place where people could gather, celebrate, and find comfort in the familiarity of home-cooked meals and genuine hospitality. Their life together was filled with quiet joy, challenges that they faced as a team, and moments of laughter that brought them closer each day. And through it all, Sam grew up in the midst of their shared dream, watching his mother and Ben build something beautiful. One evening, as the original Heart of Haven closed for the night, Ben, Mia, and Sam sat at their usual table, sharing a simple meal. They reflected on how far they had come, the challenges they had overcome, and the dreams that had blossomed into reality. "We built something special here," Ben said, looking at Mia with deep affection. "Not just for us, but for everyone who comes through those doors." Mia nodded, her smile filled with contentment. "It's more than I ever hoped for, Ben, and I wouldn't trade a single moment of it." As they sat together, they knew that their journey was a testament to the power of resilience, love, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand, knowing that Heart of Haven would forever be a place of warmth, hope, and new beginnings. Years had passed since that cold winter night when Ben first encountered Mia and Sam in the back alley of Heart of Haven. What began as a simple offer of shelter had transformed not only their lives, but also the lives of everyone who walked through the restaurant's doors. Over time, Heart of Haven had grown beyond Ben's wildest dreams, with 3 locations across Chicago, each one a thriving hub of community and connection. But no matter how many restaurants they opened, each one remained true to the heart and soul of the original. Ben and Mia, now in their 60s, had decided to spend more time mentoring young chefs, hoping to inspire a new generation of culinary talent. They taught these young chefs not only how to cook, but how to create meaningful experiences for guests, to bring a piece of themselves into every dish. It wasn't just about food, it was about creating a space where people felt at home. The lessons they shared were rooted in the values that had made Heart of Haven special from the start: quality, community, and genuine care. Their lives were full of quiet joys. The simple things: sunsets shared on the restaurant's outdoor patio, late-night chats in the empty dining room, family dinners with Sam, had become the moments they cherished most. The years had woven a tapestry of memories, and each memory was tied to the place that had brought them together. Sam, now a young man in his 20s, had embraced his role in the family business. After growing up at Heart of Haven, he had developed a passion for hospitality and had taken on more responsibilities, bringing fresh ideas and youthful energy to the restaurants. To Ben and Mia, seeing Sam flourish was a source of immense pride, a reminder of the journey that had led them all here. One summer evening, as the sun began to set over the Chicago skyline, Ben and Mia held a celebration at the original Heart of Haven. It was a small gathering of family, friends, and patrons who had supported them from the beginning. Harold Davis was there, now in his 70s but still sharp as ever, enjoying a glass of wine and recounting stories of the restaurant's early days. Ben and Mia watched the guests mingle, their hearts full as they took in the scene. This wasn't just a celebration of Heart of Haven. It was a celebration of everyone who had contributed to its success. As they stood together, watching friends and family laugh and share stories, they knew they had built something truly lasting. Mia leaned against Ben, her eyes shining with contentment. "I never imagined we'd have all of this," she whispered. Ben wrapped his arm around her shoulders, a gentle smile on his face. "Neither did I, but I wouldn't trade it for the world." As the evening continued, Ben raised his glass, signaling to the room that he had something to say. The laughter and conversation faded as everyone turned to listen, curious and attentive. "I just wanted to thank all of you," Ben began, his voice warm with gratitude. "Heart of Haven started as a dream of mine, but it became something much bigger than I ever expected. And that's because of each of you. You've brought your stories, your joy, and your friendship into this place, and that's what makes it special." He glanced at Mia, his voice softening as he continued. "And to Mia, who turned my life around and showed me what's possible when you open your heart, I'm grateful for every moment." Mia smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion as the guests raised their glasses in a heartfelt toast. The atmosphere was filled with love, a palpable sense of connection that felt like a perfect reflection of Heart of Haven's legacy. Later that night, as the guests began to trickle out and the restaurant grew quiet once more, Ben, Mia, and Sam lingered in the dining room, soaking in the peace of the moment. Sam had a spark in his eye, one that reminded Ben of his own younger self, full of dreams and ambition. "Mom, Ben," Sam began, his voice brimming with excitement, "I've been thinking I'd like to open another Heart of Haven, maybe in a neighborhood that doesn't have many community spaces, somewhere that could use a place like this." Ben exchanged a proud glance with Mia, both of them knowing that their legacy was safe in Sam's hands. They had instilled in him the values that mattered most, and they could see that he was ready to carry the torch forward. "That sounds perfect, Sam," Mia said, her voice filled with encouragement. "You have our full support." As the three of them sat together, they envisioned the future, the new places where Heart of Haven would spread its warmth and its mission of kindness. They knew that, just as their own journey had begun with a simple act of compassion, each new Heart of Haven would be a place where love, resilience, and community could flourish. In the quiet of the empty restaurant, Ben, Mia, and Sam shared a silent understanding, a feeling that they had created something that would live on long after they were gone. And as they sat together, they felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that Heart of Haven would always be a place where people could find solace, share stories, and feel at home. Thank you for joining us on the journey of the Heart of Haven. If you enjoyed Ben and Mia's story of resilience, love, and community, please subscribe to stay connected with more heartwarming tales. Hit the like button if you found inspiration in their journey, And don't forget to ring the bell to get notified whenever a new story is released. Your support means the world to us and helps bring more stories like this one to life.